Welcome back. Republican strategist Ron Nehring is back to talk about his trip to Pakistan and India. He came here before he went with perspective about the attitudes on war and so many other things. And thanks so much for coming in.
You bet.
Yeah, you know, you wrote a couple of letters about this, and you were talking about the unpopular view of the United States that a lot of these folks have.
Yeah, it was very interesting. We were part of the first delegation sponsored by the State Department to go into Pakistan since Osama bin Laden met his end on May the 2nd. And so it was a very interesting opportunity to see what the feedback was going to be. And much of it was very negative from the people who we met with. And we concluded, at least I did, that Pakistan really has become something of a quagmire for us because we can't allow the country's nuclear arsenal to slip into the hands of the bad guys, and their cooperation is essential to our success in Afghanistan. But at the same time, America is very unpopular there. There's absolutely no appreciation whatsoever for the billions of dollars in aid, economic aid, military aid that we provide every year. The country is moving closer and closer to its longtime ally of China, and that's a challenge. In fact, one of their leaders was in China while we were there, and China greeted them with 50 fighter jets. Welcome to, on your visit to China, and here's 50 planes for your Air Force.
And you took what, some DVDs?
No.
Your observations were really interesting in that it sounded to me, in reading your letters, like most of the Pakistanis didn't even want our aid. They said, keep your aid. We don't even want it. And because it comes with conditions, and it's interfering with our country. Or give it to us with no restrictions. Well, that's not going to happen.
Well, and that's unrealistic. And part of that comes from this very interesting dynamic that happened following our getting of bin Laden. The first week thereafter, the Pakistani government was caught on the defensive and very embarrassed for the fact that Osama bin Laden was living on the same paper route, in effect, as their elite military academy. But then the message changed to one of sovereignty. The United States violated our sovereignty. They should have checked with us before coming on the raid in bin Laden. And by the way, speaking of sovereignty, all this aid that they give us has all these conditions, and that's interfering with our sovereignty as well. So it all fit into the same narrative that you saw emerging from there. The reality, of course, is that Pakistan doesn't have total control of its own territory in these tribal areas. While we were there, while we were in Lahore, Pakistan, over in Peshawar, Pakistan, a U.S. consulate convoy was hit with a roadside bomb there. Now, it didn't hurt anybody on the American side, but it killed a Pakistani bystander. The Pakistani government does not have total control of its own country. So to blame us for compromising sovereignty is a little ridiculous.
But we don't want to be there. They don't want us there. We're spending billions of dollars there. You said the word quagmire. That leads me to believe you don't have a solution in mind.
Well, there certainly is not an easy solution, for sure. At the end of the day, they have a nuclear arsenal which cannot be allowed to fall into the hands either in terms of an active warhead or materials for a dirty bomb that can fall into the hands of al-Qaeda. And for that reason, we have to remain engaged and we have to work this thing through. No easy solutions, though.
Now, you also were in India, and you were talking about this, that there's this sort of perception about what they do there in terms of job growth, and you're saying it's not really the case.
Yeah, it reminded me of the fact that back in the 1980s, we were all afraid that the Japanese were going to take everything over and destroy our economic base and so on, and that wound up never materializing. Japan's one of the biggest debtor countries in the world, and they have had near zero economic growth. India, we hear all this talk about outsourcing and so on, and there is some of that takes place, but India's standard of living is so low that if their per capita income were comparable to ours, their economy would be 43 times larger. In just a drive through the countryside there, you realize that this is a country that's made progress, but it has a long, long way to go to reach our standard of living.
And they don't like us because we're giving aid to Pakistan, their longtime enemy.
That's exactly right. The one thing that we found Pakistanis and Indians agreed on is that neither one of them wanted us giving aid to Pakistan's government.